Just seconds before you came to me, there was another tsunami warning. We're just close to the Sendai port. We're away from the evacuation zone, which is why we're quite so far away from the water. This is the second tidal wave warning that we have heard in the past half hour. There is a siren followed by a woman announcing get out of the evacuation area immediately. Now, we have been seeing a half hour ago some cars leaving this area. They're certainly taking these warnings very seriously. This is why we're not that close to the water itself. But it shows that this is an ongoing situation. It shows that there are still people in these areas, and there are still the threat of further tsunamis, obviously with the aftershocks that come from such a huge earthquake, 8.9 magnitude, are going to be pretty sizable in themselves, which is always going to trigger concerns that it could trigger another tsunami. So you can see the devastation behind me. There are cars that have just been twisted into piles of metal. They're on top of each other. Some of them are twisted around poles. Further down, closer to the water, we could also see some full-size lorries that have actually been smashed into buildings. The buildings themselves are still standing, and you can see just behind that Ferris wheel there a huge, thick, black plume of smoke. Now, we've been watching this for some time. We've tried to go a bit closer, but the tsunami warnings are keeping us away from the water. Now, what the local residents are telling us is that they believe that's the area of a factory where they think that this is where there's either been a gas explosion or some fuel is burning off. It's been like that, they say, since yesterday. It's been like that for 24 hours, and the rescue workers just can't get close enough to actually try and put it out. So certainly people are fairly jumpy here at the moment. So you can see it's a pretty empty area. There's debris, there's mud everywhere across this particular area of the port, and everywhere you look there are smashed up, mangled cars. Becky?
Yeah, it's sort of a scene of Armageddon to a certain extent. And you brought up something which I wanted to follow up on with you. There don't seem to be many people around. Have you spoken to people in the region? What are they saying at this point?
We've spoken to a couple of people here, but at this particular area of Sendai, there aren't actually many people still here. Now, it was very interesting driving from the west of Sendai. This is a coastal city on the east coast, obviously. We drove east into the city, and it just looked like any normal metropolis. There was no indication that anything was wrong until you turned a corner, and then there were 100 cars queuing up for gas. There is a shortage of gas at this point. People telling us that they have to queue up for half an hour, sometimes an hour, and then they're allowed 10 litres only. And also you drive around another corner and you see 100 people queuing for the one drugstore that is open in this town, 100 people queuing for the one grocery store that is open in this town, and most of the shelves are empty. Now, there's very little, if any, electricity in the shops and in the houses of this particular city, and as we were driving in, there was a huge queue of cars driving out. We were one of the few ones actually driving in, so certainly people are trying to get out of the area because it's particularly difficult to live here at the moment. It is cold. It's about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius, and without electricity that makes it even more miserable for the residents here. Becky?
Paula, just give me a sense then of how the land lies around you. Over your right shoulder, you said there was a Ferris wheel, and behind that you believe there may be a building on fire. Is the sea directly behind you? Because we saw pictures of Sendai yesterday being engulfed by this wave.
Yes, it is directly behind me. That's the port. Now, we haven't managed to go any further north at this point. We've been prevented from getting too close to the water because of the warnings themselves. Now, we were there just a little while ago, and you could see, as I say, a lot of damage to cars and to trucks, not necessarily to buildings themselves, though. They still seem to... excuse me, still seem to be standing and seem to have withheld the force of this water. But the fact is, the water is approximately half a mile behind me, maybe less, and the cars that are mangled go on in front of me. So you can see the sheer force of the water to manage to carry these cars quite so far, managing to smash them against buildings. And as I say, many trucks have actually been carried this far. Many are wrapped around electricity pylons or caught up trees. So it's really quite spectacular to see just what sort of force this water had. But I should mention, it didn't fell buildings in this particular area. We understand maybe further north, then that's where even further damage is.